And we're live with Greg DeShields of SKAL Philadelphia, and I am Morgan Marovich, your Director of Membership of SKAL USA. And we're delighted to talk with Greg today about SKAL Philadelphia and them becoming the SKAL USA Club of the Year, and what Greg and and what Greg and the team there have done to become Club of the Year, but also just what they've done during the pandemic in these past few years to build the club. So, Greg, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm thrilled to be here. To all Skullies out there, hello.
Well, thank you for everyone for joining us today. We're delighted to have this conversation and chat here today on Facebook with all of you live. So Greg, first, let's get to know you. Tell us a little bit just about you, what you do, and what you do in the industry.
Sure. So I am a native Philadelphian, and it's interesting for me because I am what they call an executive director squared. So I'm the executive director at PHL Diversity, which is a business development division at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So my division secures all diverse and multicultural meetings and conventions that come to Philadelphia. And as a number of SKAL had experienced during the course of the downturn of the pandemic, our budgets were cut significantly, and it offered me an opportunity to explore other ways of still being very much engaged in our industry. So there was a new organization that was launching, Tourism Diversity Matters, which focuses on all of the issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion across our industry as a national organization. So I lead that organization as well. So in that case, I get to be an executive director of both, but run into a number of SKAL leagues all across the country through the work that we do at Tourism Diversity Matters.
That's amazing. So you're a very, very busy man.
2 coordinators, 2 emails, absolutely.
That is a lot. Well, thank you for being a part of SKAL and committing some of your time to SKAL. We truly appreciate it. So clearly you have a very diverse career. You're very involved. Do you have any experiences that really stand out to you that you want to share with us or talk about?
Well, I've worked in the hotel industry quite a bit, and I think anybody who's worked in the hotel segment can certainly tell a variety of different stories. But I've also had a chance to be involved in other aspects of our industry. I led a hospitality training program for a nonprofit organization and spent 13 years in higher ed with Temple University School of Sport Tourism and Hospitality Management. And I think for me, that's probably one of the most memorable experiences, because during the course of that time, we hosted a 2+2 program with our campus in Tokyo. So I not only helped to facilitate our corporate relations for students here in the US, but also for our campus over in Tokyo. So we worked very closely with Hyatt and Four Seasons and Sheraton hotels. And I had the opportunity to teach a class in Tokyo, because our campus students spoke English. But I learned you could not use acronyms, and what was maybe an hour-long curriculum here in the US was about a half an hour over there. But it was an amazing experience, and some of those students later came to the US and were in my lodging class that I taught at Temple. And of course, working at the Convention of Visitors and Tourism Diversity Matters has provided me a variety of different experiences, but I will never, ever forget what it was like developing that class over in Tokyo.
That's really cool. So you are very familiar with where the Olympics will be then.
I am, and I want to go.
I know. I wish they were having more people being able to attend this year, but that's very cool that you were over there. And
if anyone goes, there's an area called Roppongi Hills, which is amazing. There's an incredible Hyatt and Ritz-Carlton over in that area. It's very cosmopolitan. But if I ever were to go back to Tokyo, that would be amongst the first places that I would go.
I love it. Some good tips. Fantastic. So clearly, so everyone knows, you are the most recent past president of SKAL Philadelphia. Tell us a little bit how you got involved. When did you join? Tell us a little bit about it.
So I have to give you my story about becoming president, because I've been involved with SKAL since 2000, but it was at a meeting with our club that I actually did not want to attend, but as a dedicated SKAL member, of course I went, and I stepped into the bathroom for just 2 minutes and came back and was voted club president. So what am I going to say? But of course, it was without any doubt for me, Skãl has been a very treasured aspect of my career, especially as you think of the international aspect of what the organization does. I got involved with it by way of, and I've always given a shout out to Elizabeth Barber, Betsy Barber, who was the dean of Temple University, who wanted to expand the opportunities for her students by engaging them in Skãl, both as alumni as well as members of Young Skãl. And in 2000, we launched a Skãl Club on campus. We collaborated with a variety of other clubs in our market, and then as a dedicated administrator for the school, became very entrenched within the club in Philadelphia. Not only myself, but as well, Dean Barber became a member, and she still is on the board for Skãl. And for years, we've been very active and very supportive members, and that's how I got introduced.
That's fantastic. So clearly you're very involved with young professionals and getting the youth involved. What's one piece of advice you'd give to any young professional who's just getting this starting in the industry or developing in their beginning years of being in the industry?
So I would say build the network as quickly as you can, but maintain it for the duration of your career. People just move to different seats at the table. And to that degree, there's never someone that you meet and never connect with them again. You might wind up collaborating with them on different projects. It was funny. I was on a call with someone today who said, I talked to you back in 2000. And I'm like, 2000? And she said, yes. And I followed you through your career throughout. And I think realizing that the relationships and the network that you build is something that stays with you for a lifetime. And honestly, that is at the root of Skãl. The kind of collaboration and the relationships that you build are very long term. I've been to a number of the club meetings, and you can see that people have been affiliated with each other for a number of years. So I would say build your relationships and maintain them for life.
Absolutely. That is strong advice. And it's so true. The industry looks big, but it's actually really small. And you cross paths so frequently that you don't even realize it. So that is fantastic advice. So tell us about Skãl Philadelphia. What types of events? What does the makeup of the membership of the club look like? Tell us a little bit about the club.
Well, so when we moved into my presidency, I also had to engage a vice president, and Mariska Bogle was my vice president. I took her to a hospitality facility, the Lowe's Philadelphia, and ordered endless glasses of wine until she would agree to be my vice president for 2 years. We did commit to 2 years. We looked at the club and felt that, Philadelphia is a hospitality town, and we certainly wanted to engage a variety of different individuals from all different aspects of the hospitality spectrum, whether they were in higher ed, whether they worked as a travel agent, whether they worked for a hotel or a restaurant or catering or meetings. We wanted to engage everyone to experience the type of camaraderie that Skãl really offered individuals. I think what was also important for us, though, Skãl Philadelphia was going to celebrate its 65th anniversary in December of 2019. So for us, we really wanted to make sure that we were building up the level of excitement and enthusiasm that had been entrenched in the club for years and that could be celebrated during the course of the 65th. So we were fortunate. We had a variety of different individuals. We stuck to our dinner meetings. We held them in some very spectacular locations. We had some great partners who made the costs extremely affordable, maybe not as profitable as we would have liked for our club, but maintained a degree of specialness. But without any doubt, diversity, equity, and inclusion was a high priority for myself and Mariska as the first two leaders of color for the club. We certainly wanted to ensure that we were approaching it from as an inclusive perspective as possible. And that was amongst our top priorities. And for us to bring more people of color into Skãl, to engage with Skãl, realizing that from an international perspective, Skãl is very diverse. We wanted to make sure that we were opening up our club to be as inclusive as possible, inviting as many people as possible to be at the table.
That's fantastic. So what advice as a past president of your club, what advice would you have for other presidents out there that are maybe just becoming presidents for their first time? I guess what little tips or tricks would you have to pass down to them?
So the first thing I would say is think realistically. If your term is 2 years, what can you do in 2 years? Shortly after we took office, we went straight into our strategic planning meeting and we determined what was feasible within 2 years. Also, build in succession from the very beginning because you are there for 2 years and you can't postpone succession. And the successive transition with our club had everything to do with the fact that at our first strategic planning meeting, we started talking about succession. I think it's also important to be bold and be brave and to challenge opportunities that will enhance and build your club. There were some very unpopular conversations that we had about increasing the diversity of our club, but it was healthy for our club. It was healthy because it brought awareness to individuals who would have never thought about it, and their experience with Skãl was very different than others that you might have even imagined. I think it also is important for you to create programming that's different and not provide people the same sort of experience that we all have probably gone to and said, this is the worst and the most boring meeting that we could have. We tried to move to a reception format because people are busy. They want to do 2 and 3 events in an evening. So holding them from 5 until 7 was a long stretch of time. So we even created reception-oriented programming so that people could kind of come and go and not feel as though that they were obligated, while still building in some dinners, because we know that for some of our more traditional Skãl members that they'd want that opportunity to spend some more extended time and be engaged. And then think of subjects and topics that are just, not the norm in terms of what you might normally have at a dinner meeting. But remember, we were presidents and vice president of our club during a normal thriving year. And then at the conclusion, we then entered into the world of the pandemic.
So it's so true. It was almost like you had two totally different years.
Totally different years. And they also challenge you to think differently. When we moved to a webinar format, look, we all struggled with the beginning of figuring out how to work the Zoom thing, but we had some creative individuals. Amy, who's our current president, we love you, Amy. She helped to do some incredible design to market our upcoming sessions. The board, without any doubt, was 100% vested and participated in all of our programming. Each one of the members of the board presented some perspective of the industry. And that was important because there were a lot of people who were hurting as a result of the early aspects of the pandemic. So we had individuals who were sharing stories about what was happening in their companies, and they were sharing stories of how they were able to adapt and shift and move and do different things. And I think the authenticity of your board telling their stories gave more credibility and more belief in terms of the chapter.
No, absolutely. It's very true. So again, congratulations on being Skãl USA Club of the Year. Fantastic news. We all heard your reaction on the call during the announcement. It was kind of like the joy moment of the meeting. It was
I
fantastic.
tell everyone it was my Academy Awards. I still can't believe it.
It was fantastic. I loved it so much. So we heard your reaction, but how did it feel to share with your club? How did your members feel about it? What did you do to become Club of the Year? So tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, so one thing, I was on the call and it was like a 3-hour conference call, right? And I'm sitting there listening, and then when they finally announced it, I didn't even know how to take myself off of mute. So I was so thrilled that I felt that I was going to lose an opportunity to say thank you, right? It was absolutely exhilarating because if you're a chapter president, you are so committed to the work that you do. You may have to pay for the event out of your own American Express. You are probably going to have to, be there early, and you're going to have to watch counts and see how many people register and who's attending and who's not attending, or this didn't happen. So how am I going to adjust to do that? And, are we selling memberships? How much money do we have in the bank? I mean, all of those things are constantly, presented to you, and you're wondering, does any of this matter? Because you have a board that's looking up to you for leadership. You have a membership that certainly is expecting for your club to perform, not to mention from SkAl International and SkAl USA. So for us, it was really an opportunity to celebrate because we all collectively, none of this was one person. This was everybody. There were times when my mind was done. And if I didn't have a vice president who was there to lift me up, I would have never been able to manage. And, we had Frank Clare. Oh my God, he's like, the icon of our club. And he kept our finances in place. He helped us establish our 501c3. I mean, there were so many contributions by all the different members who were part of the board that pulled it together. So I would say no one person is going to make it work. It's a collective group of people who pull it together. But the kind of things that we did within that first year, like I said, was to be creative and try and come up with new type of programming. The reception model was a great way for us to go. Marketing was everything. We leveraged every single photo that we could. If you had 3 people, take a picture that really looks like it's 3,000, even though it's only 3. Or if it is 3, that they're having the best time possible and the other 3,000 people are sorry that they missed that meeting. But leveraging the relationship of social media, Facebook, of course, LinkedIn, because the more consistent you are about showing what you do as a club attracts people to have interest in the things that you do. So for us, that was a big part of what I feel was successful for us. And then when we moved to a webinar format to come up with some creative content and stick to starting on time and ending on time, without any doubt, people have very limited time to be engaged with you. So if you are starting at 5, start at 5. And if you're supposed to end at 6, if someone's running over, sorry, we're going to move this program along. And I think that those types of things and the consistency and the professionalism was really, I think, a true value. Realizing that during the pandemic, share information from US travel, share information from the CDC, talk about what hotels are doing, talk about what restaurants are doing, because that's what is real and relevant to people. And providing them information that can be used after you have exited is great. And I have to do a shout out to the other clubs because it's also collaborating with the other clubs. We had New York, we have New Jersey, we had Washington, we had San Francisco, we had Hawaii that were joining our calls, which I felt provided us to be connected with the SkAl family, not just us as a club. So I think, those kind of creative, unique ways of thinking, and of course, sharing it as much as you can, made a big difference for us as a club.
That's amazing to hear, and to hear about how your team pulled together and how you function. Each of you had a different part in playing to helping the organization. Is phenomenal to hear. So is there any, I guess, what steps did you take? So when you decided to apply for the Club of the Year, like what steps did you take? Because we know that there's like the criteria, but I guess what different goals did you have? Did you have, did your board have certain things that you wanted to do? Was there anything behind that?
So for us, it was certainly making sure that you are doing some sort of chronicle of all the stuff that you do, because when you do the application, you really need to be able to tell your story. What are the things that you accomplished? We were focused on the issue of growing membership. However we could do that, we were very successful building relationship with academic institutions, getting the director of that program and maybe some of their students. So growing membership was certainly a top priority. I think the other thing, though, was realizing that somebody can continue to move that forward while you're doing other things. So we thank Amy to the fullest of our heart because she continued. I mean, this was our second time that we applied for it, and while we continued to focus on ensuring that we were doing webinars, ensuring that we were keeping the club top of mind and building relationships with SkAl USA and other clubs, she submitted our application and did a beautiful job. I downloaded the submission that she had myself and posted it on my own social media. And that's why, I can't emphasize enough that it is a team effort. If we can, as a club, build content, then Amy can submit it so that we have a fighting chance. So I would strongly, encourage any club, to rely on the strength of everyone who sits around the table, and everyone has a valuable component that they bring to the success of the club. And the work that we've done in Philadelphia was only because there was a team of individuals who came together who wanted to see success and were fortunate enough to experience it.
That is so awesome to hear. Well, congratulations again. We're so excited for SKAL Philadelphia. And having been one of those people that took part in some of your webinars and different things, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. So thank you all again.
Thank you.
I would like to ask, from your presidency and your time in your 2 years, is there anything that really sticks out from your time as president, like a memory or something that you implemented or anything like that?
I think for me, and if I were to pivot to a serious moment, I think as myself and our club, as well as the support of my vice president, around the issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're a very diverse industry. We are an industry that's international. And as a organization and as a club, to embrace what that means in terms of not just our customers, but our coworkers, our employees, our customers. We really wanted to ensure that that was a top of mind focus and not one that would just be in fed during the course of some sort of social movement, but that was something that we could really emphasize as a huge part of who we are as an organization. So I got invited to join a Skãl Africa call that we're talking about the work that we were doing in Philadelphia around DEI, which was amazing. To believe that your work can be not just impactful here, but was connecting to other parts of the world was one of the reasons why I found being involved with Skãl to be such an exciting and such a memorable experience. So that for me, speaking about diversity with those at Skãl Africa, was just icing on the cake.
That's amazing, and what a great opportunity. And it really shows how full encompassing Skãl really is, because some people just see it as like the local chapter or maybe the USA network, but to your point, it is really a global network, and we do have 14,000 plus members worldwide. So utilizing and being able to integrate within that full network is very vital, and you had a wonderful opportunity with Skãl Africa. So kudos to that. Kudos to that. That's awesome. So I'm going to do some rapid fire questions, and if anyone has any comments or questions that they'd like to ask as well, please feel free to chime in on the comment board. However, I'm going to ask Greg some quick rapid fire, and then we'll end it for the day. So, window seat or aisle seat?
I am aisle.
Aisle, nice. All right. Favorite vacation destination?
Los Angeles.
On here, I thought you'd say Philly.
I did, but I am such a West Coast. Actually, if I were to clarify, I do Miami and Palm Springs with my husband, but we both love LA as kind of our wrap up. So
nice. Palm Springs, I love. So great. It's a fantastic spot. Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Totally with you on that one. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Butter pecan.
Ooh, nice. Nice one. All right. And
or chocolate chip mint, either of the two, but butter pecan I love.
Solid. All right. And then last one, what's something you could eat straight for a week?
Fried chicken. I love fried chicken so much. I would encourage people to try a variety of different fried chicken, but without any doubt, I probably would turn into a chicken.
I was thinking you're going to go for cheesesteak, but
I could. You know what? I am so failing the Philly test, right?
You are. I'm like, come on, he's going to say cheesesteak.
Or a hoagie.
Well, Greg, thank you so much. It's been a blast, and it was so great hearing about what Skãl Philadelphia has done and your advice for other leaders of the organization. You've done a tremendous job at the club, and we know Amy is doing keeping that torch going there. So thank you again. We are delighted that Skãl Philly is Skãl Club of the Year, and thank you for continuing to be involved in carrying that Skãl flag.
Well, thank you so much, and go Skãl.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay.